Welcome to the deep dive. Forget the headlines for a moment, because today we're going right to the source. We got excerpts from an interview titled AI Interview, Inside the Mind of Claude. And, well, that's exactly what we're doing, taking a look at how Claude, the AI assistant from Anthropic, actually works.
Right. This isn't about the latest flashy demo. It's more about getting a foundational understanding of the mechanisms at play here.
Exactly. For you, the learner, our mission today is really to distill some crucial insights about AI functionality, its inherent limitations, and maybe clear up some of the common misunderstandings. We're bypassing the hype, getting these insights straight from the AI itself in a way that's digestible and hopefully pretty fascinating. So we're kicking off with something pretty fundamental. How can Claude learn from its interactions without, permanently storing all our personal details? Claude offers a really neat analogy, something about a whiteboard.
That's a great starting point, yeah. Claude explains that its learning process involves identifying patterns, relationships within the text it processes. It's about understanding language structure, context, refining its ability to reason based on these patterns.
Okay.
But crucially, its architecture includes specific constraints. These are designed specifically to prevent the retention of personally identifiable information across different interactions.
The whiteboard analogy. That really helps visualize this, doesn't it? During a conversation, personal details might be part of the exchange, like notes written on the board.
Right.
But once that conversation ends, poof, the bot is effectively erased. So you start with a clean slate each time you interact.
Which, naturally leads to the question many people have. We know the data from these interactions is often stored somewhere in some form. So if those restrictions were removed, could Claude theoretically access all that past information?
Yeah, that's the key question. And Claude's answer really clarifies a vital distinction. The difference between simply storing data and having the architectural capability to actively access and recall specific past interactions. Even if the raw data of past conversations exists on a server somewhere, Claude's current design just doesn't include a persistent memory function. It doesn't carry over from one session to the next.
And what's fascinating here is this idea of statelessness.
Yeah.
With each new interaction, it's essentially a new instance of Claude running.
A completely new instance.
Pretty much. Its knowledge base is that massive data set it was trained on, basically the vast majority of text and code publicly available up to a certain point, not some growing logbook of individual conversations. And this design has significant implications for privacy, obviously.
It's like having access to an incredibly knowledgeable library every time you ask a question, but the librarian genuinely doesn't remember what you asked them last week.
Good analogy.
Now, the interviewer does press a bit further on this. Could a future AI system be engineered to give Claude, or, a similar AI, access to all that stored conversational data?
And Claude acknowledges that, well, in theory, yes. It's technically possible, I suppose, to build systems that could collect, index, and make vast amounts of conversational data accessible to an AI. Different AI components could potentially be developed and linked together to achieve that kind of persistent memory and cross-session awareness.
But it's quick to emphasize that this capability is way outside its current architecture, right?
Absolutely. It stresses it doesn't have the built-in mechanisms to connect to external databases of past conversations, or, importantly, to rewrite its own fundamental code on the fly.
Okay.
And that brings up a whole host of real-world considerations. I mean, beyond the technical hurdles, you'd immediately run into significant legal frameworks around data privacy.
The GDPR and things like that.
Exactly. And serious ethical debates about consent and data usage, company policies designed to protect user information, and just the immense technical complexity of building and maintaining such a system securely.
So while it's not like an absolute technical impossibility.
Not absolutely impossible, no. But there are very significant barriers in place, which really highlights why discussions around AI governance are so crucial right now.
Okay, let's just make sure this is crystal clear for you, the learner. When you're engaging with Claude, it is not remembering your previous chats. It's drawing on this immense ocean of information it was trained on to understand your current query and formulate a response. Each interaction is essentially a fresh start.
Exactly. It's not pretending to have amnesia. It's the fundamental way it's designed to operate right now.
Okay, now let's shift gears a bit. The interview also explores what happens when Claude encounters a really challenging question. It's not like it instantly has all the answers, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. Claude describes a process it calls deliberative mode. So when faced with a complex or nuanced query, it actually slows down its internal processing.
Slows down. How so?
Well, it starts considering the question from multiple perspectives, exploring different potential interpretations, and kind of evaluating various ways to formulate a helpful, accurate, and importantly, safe response.
Huh. That sounds, well, it sounds a lot like how we humans might approach a difficult problem, taking our time, thinking it through from different angles, weighing options before settling on something.
The analogy to human problem solving is quite apt, I think. That importantly, Claude also mentions its commitment to transparency regarding its knowledge boundaries.
Meaning,
Meaning, if it's entering a domain where its information is limited or uncertain, it aims to communicate that uncertainty rather than just, presenting speculation as fact.
that intellectual honesty is definitely something we value in humans. It's reassuring to hear that AI systems are being developed with a similar principle in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about when things get, well, muddled? Does Claude ever experience something like confusion?
Well, Claude explains it doesn't have subjective emotional experiences like human confusion or frustration. It can't feel confused. However, when it receives ambiguous input or maybe conflicting information or requests that really stretch the limits of its capabilities, there are analogous shifts in its internal processing.
Okay, so what does that look like then? Under the hood, I mean.
Claude indicates that its confidence scores for potential responses might decrease. These are essentially internal measures of how certain it is about the accuracy or appropriateness of a given answer.
I see.
And when faced with ambiguity, it might also start generating several different possible interpretations of the input simultaneously, almost like it's exploring multiple branches of understanding at once.
Right. And how does it try to navigate through that confusion, for lack of a better word?
Typically, it'll try to resolve the ambiguity. It might ask clarifying questions, trying to get more specific information from the
Oh,
user.
makes sense.
Or, alternatively, it might present multiple interpretations in its response, explicitly acknowledging that the initial request was, open to different understandings.
Which really underscores the importance of clear and precise communication when interacting with AI, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The less ambiguity in your prompts, the more effective the interaction is likely to be.
Right. It highlights that AI, while powerful, is still really reliant on the clarity of the input it receives. Now, Claude also touches on some fundamental limitations, things that we, as users, really need to grasp. What are some of the key boundaries we should be aware of?
Well,